Hey, security peeps, we are live with another edition of Breaking Into Cybersecurity. This is CISO Thursdays. We have wonderful people here. I am Renee Small, cybersecurity super recruiter, helping awesome leaders hire great talent. Next to me, Randall Frietzsche. Say hi to everybody, Randall.
Hello, everyone. How's it going?
Awesome. And we're going to get into it with Randall because he has a post that hit 300,000 people. Super excited to talk about that. Next up, James, a.k.a. Alex, a.k.a. Kobe, a.k.a. Yaki Azar. We have jokes on that. I'll tell you about it in a second, but say hi to everyone, James.
a.k.a. Frank, a.k.a. You forgot Abu Abdallah. You're leaving all my Arabic fans out of this.
They're apparently all famous too, like every one of them.
Everybody.
Assalamu alaikum, boker tov, Chag Chanukah Sameach. It's Hanukkah. It's the first night of Hanukkah, y'all.
Really?
It's the first night of Hanukkah tonight.
Awesome.
I'm super psyched.
Awesome.
I get to eat donuts for 8 days and no one gets to say a damn thing about it.
OMG, my son is going to want to end up being Jewish if he knows he can do that.
Are you getting Hanukkah geld?
Yes, I am. And I am, I have a very weird tradition since I was a kid. I like to give everyone, I'm giving my wife 8 different gifts for Hanukkah, but now all the gifts don't add up until the 8th day.
Oh my goodness.
I hope she's not watching.
You just blew your own spot. My co-host, Chris Foulon. Say hi to everybody, Chris. Okay.
Howdy, everyone. I had to find the unmute button. Sorry, I have a garbage truck outside.
Chris has stuff going on. And my favorite here, Naomi Buckwalter.
I'm the favorite, yes.
Oh, as of today. The only person that didn't throw me under the bus yet.
I don't throw bus. I don't. No, that's just me.
Oh my goodness.
I'll be nice.
So fun times. Okay, first of all, let's shout out some people who are always here. Bryant. Hi, Bryant. Danielle's back. Hi, Danielle. She was sick last time. JJ wants to know, do calories still count during that?
So a big acceptable rabbi said, whatever you eat on a high holiday that is written as a mitzvah, meaning a good deed in Judaism, you do not get fat off of. So I can eat a challah on Friday, I don't get fat off of it. And I can eat donuts on the 8 nights of Hanukkah and not get fat. God said so. And a rabbi echoed it, and I believe it. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
And I will double down on this, so I'm going to take Jewish for the week.
If you celebrate every religion, you can eat something every day.
You said that every day in December. Brent is back. Hey, Brent. Brent was our guest last week. He was awesome.
Hey, Brent.
Aisha says hello here. And Nora says, hi, Renee, Randall, James, Chris, and Naomi. Hope you all are doing well and staying safe. Happy to hear from everybody. Hi, Nora. So,
she forgot Alex.
Yeah, she forgot Alex. So, okay, joke number 1 before we get started. Yesterday we were having a wonderful, professional live with a CIO. He's talking about all these great things. Chris and I are wrapping up. I wrap and I'm like, yeah, tomorrow we have CISO Thursdays with Naomi and Alex Azar. And then at the end, I'm like, wait a minute, Alex Azar, James Azar. Chris blows me up. tells James.
Now she's calling me Alex.
Now you're Alex. I'm changing your name in my phone to Alex. Now he's Alex. So he tells James, he tells Naomi. So it's going to be fun times, as you all can tell. Randall is like, what is wrong with these people? So Randall is here
What did I sign up for?
Yeah, he's like, what in the world?
I should have done better vetting.
Like, let me watch them before I actually come on this wacky show. So Randall had an awesome post that I want to get into first. And Randall made a post about breaking into cybersecurity and how it's long, and Randall, you'll get into it. It got 300,000 views, tons of comments and likes. And so we want to talk about that today. And kick it off with Randall, your thoughts, what made you even write that post, what triggered that, and let's get into that conversation. I'm really excited to hear about this one.
Yeah, thank you. So, it's been it's been a long road for me. It was very difficult to get into cybersecurity. I got into IT and I didn't especially have an interest in cybersecurity at the time. And I just did a lot of the IT stuff. And, over time, my aptitude personality started taking me in a cybersecurity direction. We didn't used to call it cybersecurity. We used to call it InfoSec. So once I, got along in my career, I started teaching, and through teaching, I'm finding that, a lot of students have false, expectations about getting into cybersecurity. I've been asked hundreds of times, how do I get into cybersecurity? And, part of my mission is to help folks to either get into cybersecurity or to progress in cybersecurity, and really just make sure the next generation of cyber pros are prepared. And, there are a lot of really nasty people out there that are, could care less how they harm you or damage your stuff, steal your data, even kill your patients. And, it's just unacceptable. So we have to prepare the next generation very well. And I just feel like I'm part of that effort. And I just, wanted to post about that. It was intended to spur some controversy because I think that gets a lot of attention. And so I insinuated, but I don't really believe this, that you have to be an expert at everything. I certainly don't believe that. And you can be in cybersecurity and not be an expert, but it's really tough unless you have a good foundation of knowledge in IT. You know about servers and hardware, about operating systems, about databases and applications, about the network, you understand wireless, you understand mobile. You really have to you really have to at least have a good understanding of those things and how they work under the hood before you can try to go and secure those things. And it's just cart before the horse, right? I wouldn't know how to secure a router unless I understood how that router worked. And so you have to have at least a good foundational knowledge in IT. So that's the reason why I posted that.
I mean, I wouldn't disagree that you have to have a great foundational knowledge. I don't think you have to be an expert in everything, especially as technology evolves. You can't be an expert in everything. There's just too much. But you can choose to be a generalist or you could choose to be a specialist. And each of those has their pros and cons when it comes to looking for your next role. I personally have always taken the generalist route because I love learning. I love learning about new things all the times. So I know a little bit about everything, but I probably couldn't reprogram the router from scratch. With some Google Foo, I could do it, but it's not my area of specialty.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And, we can always Google it. And I always tell my students and anyone that asks, read a book on TCP/IP and Google anything that you don't understand. And that's exactly what I did, except back in the day, we didn't have Google. So we looked at a lot of manuals and IBM read books. They were all in the trunk of my car as I went from different customer to different customer. But if there's something, if you're in a room with folks and they're talking about something and you don't understand it, ask and they'll explain it to you, or Google it and read about it until you have a pretty good understanding where you could explain it to somebody else. And if you can do that, you have a pretty good understanding of it. The hands-on application, it just depends. If you've never worked on a firewall before, it doesn't necessarily mean you can't audit a firewall. As long as you understand the controls that should be there, what are the concepts around firewalls and what should you have on your firewall and what shouldn't you have. I did a customer one time where they said they were very secure and they had a firewall, and I looked at their firewall config and they had a allow any at the very top of the config. And then they had a bunch of rules and they said, yeah, we're blocking all this and we're allowing all this. And I said, well, you have a allow any at the very top, right? And they didn't understand what that meant. So it's scary, right? I mean, because you can cause some real damage if you don't know what you're doing. So I just think that we need to ensure that those coming up behind us are, educated to a level where they can do the job. And like I said, there's so many bad actors out there that'll just decimate you if you don't know what you're doing. And they give you the keys to the kingdom. And if you don't know what you're doing with those keys, and you can really get screwed up fast.
So, Randall, a comment came in just now. Gloria says, I agree on all your inputs, but what about the human factor? We have to consider that as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I call the human the layer 8. That is, part of the OSI stack, above everything, right? The human interaction, or the, interfacing with the system as a user. You have to train those folks. At least once a month, I'm communicating with my organization about the risks. We train them really well annually, and we also, fish them. And I'm constantly bugging them with emails about it and how serious it is. Especially we have in healthcare, we have this Ryuk ransomware that is being targeted to healthcare, and now we have we're hearing of attempts to disrupt the vaccine supply chain. And even, these freezers, they have to be minus 70 degrees and they have to be monitored. And then, folks set up the monitoring to talk to the public internet so the monitoring company can get alerts, but a hacker can also gain access to that. So then they shut off the alerting and they cause the temperature to rise in the freezer and you spoil all your vaccine. That would be really bad. So, like I said, we just have to train everyone really well as to their role. Even if they're not in security or IT at all, they still have a role in handling email very well, making sure they're careful which websites they visit and that type of thing.
You brought up, Randall, like 4 different things that you talk about, kind of the core competencies of people that want to break into cyber, right? In your post, if you look at all 600 and some odd comments that are on there, and as we've been kind of doing this, you skim through some of that, you realize that there's an inherent disconnect, something that we talk about here every week, between what skills are needed for entry-level roles, what cross-training can we take from other parts of the business to bring them into I think where the greatest need is in cybersecurity, which is the mid-management level, the team leads, the kind of, those where you have people who, could be in IT for 7 years, who we can train them on security, who have experience, who can come in and do the kind of work that we need in middle management, that you can trust them to do the work, right? And kind of get that stuff done. And you just brought up the idea of the vaccines, right? And kind of like the public risk to that. It's interesting because I don't know if Naomi, Chris, and Renee, I don't know if you guys saw it this morning. 4 stories that were trending on like some of the global media was how Russian hackers got into the EU's vaccine database and stole all that documentation. Another one was around ransomware on the IT infrastructure for the deployment of the vaccine in Germany. Mm-hmm. And so they're going and they're targeting these systems that are being set up quickly without really controls by countries. Germany's a nation state, right? The EU is 28 nation states. Like, you guys, where's your military? Where's your cyber force? Where's your cyber command in helping you set this stuff up? And that goes into the human factor, right? Where they're trying to rush stuff through, but they're not really addressing the whole security pass, because they go, well, who would want to do this? And I'm like, really? Some really bad people, aka Russia, aka China, aka Iran, aka North Korea.
Right. Pick one.
Right.
Aisha says, Gloria, she agrees with Gloria. The human is a part of the network. So layer 8. Why is so much emphasis placed on the hardware and networks?
Well, if you don't know how the hardware works, if you don't know how it talks on the wire, and you don't know what the network is doing with it, routing and switching, access control lists to isolate networks. If you don't understand how that works, how are you going to secure your systems that are in those networks? And I'm not saying you have to be a Cisco CCIE, architect level, but you definitely have maybe the Network Plus from CompTIA, even that, or a CCNA from Cisco. just that foundation of networking, TCP/IP, subnetting, access control list, VPN. How does it work? How does the encryption work? It's a tunnel. You got to understand how that works before you can try to secure it. Before you can ask for money to be a professional to secure that. That's what you're being expected to do, and they're going to pay you. So you have to at least have an understanding. I can talk to the network guys, and they know I know what I'm talking about. And I'm not an expert like they are, but they know I know what I'm talking about. And therefore, I have a seat at the table, and I can influence, design changes around the network and demilitarized zone, DMZ, those types of things. And so therefore, I'm of value to the organization from that perspective. And so, you still have to have the ability to do that, or else you're just not going to be at the table. And, if you want to be a SOC analyst, you can get alerts, you can research them, you can Google them, you can read the manuals, and you can be a SOC analyst without understanding, the internals of the networking. But still, you should still try, right? If you want to be more than a SOC analyst, level 1, you should really try to continue to build that well-rounded knowledge in IT, and that would include hardware and networking. It includes databases, applications.
Helps make you more effective in your role.
Yeah. Well, Randall, I thought, that sounds pretty basic, right? Are they not teaching that in school? Like, I thought that was kind of standard for what a program would provide, that you understand the foundation, you understand how computers work, you understand, it just seems like it would be very, very basic information that every single program
it is.
Especially would have. Okay. Right. All right.
Well, I go back to when I first started teaching about 8 years ago. I was teaching a Security Plus, course. Basically, the course was meant to teach you what you needed to know to pass this CompTIA Security Plus certification exam. And one of the foundations of that was networking class, database class, some basic programming classes. And then once you had gone through all those prerequisites, then you could start taking some more of the InfoSec classes. And the class that I taught was, not a certification boot camp or anything. It was a college course. But when you pass that course, you should be able to go past the Security Plus. And I would get students who had been through all those prerequisites, and I would start talking about some of the really basic concepts, and they just weren't getting it. And so I really realized quickly that I had to reteach them things like networking and TCP/IP before I could even start talking about how to secure on top of that. So I don't think that a lot of cases, certainly not a universal statement, but in a lot of cases, colleges are not properly preparing folks. And they really need a more robust IT general program before they start diving into the cybersecurity. I used to think that you get a bachelor's in IT and then a master's in cybersecurity, but I don't think that's necessary today. Even if you have an associate's degree, if you have a good program that you're attending and they're giving you that really good foundational knowledge, and then stepping you up into cyber and taking the knowledge that you've gained and then applying that to cybersecurity, then I think that's great. I just don't, in my experience, I haven't seen that happen.
So you think that, and I'm very curious when it comes to the degree programs, because I think that degree, from what I've heard and what I've seen, and the people that end up showing up in my inbox struggling, right? They typically have had they've gone to a master's degree program or a bachelor's degree program, and then they come out and they can't get into opportunities, whereas others come out and they immediately get into opportunities. So it's crystal clear to me that something is a gap when it comes to certain degree programs.
Yeah.
And what frustrates me is that, these people that they've been sold something, right? That they can get this piece of paper and this is going to get them an entry into a job. And so I'm curious as to what you think. So if you, and I know I read some of the things that you wrote in your post around like associate's degrees. And it doesn't, it's not an associate's degree. It's not one cert. It's a combination of different things. Mm-hmm. If you were to put together, like in your utopia, a pathway for people, what would that look like? You've been teaching this, you're in the field, this is what you do. What would that look like?
Well, it really depends on your background, right? If you're just out of high school, I had associate's degree students who thought that when they graduated with an associate's degree, they were going to be a pen tester and make $100,000 a year to start. And, it pains me. It pains me because when I tell them that's not really true, it sort of, bursts their bubble. And I don't want to burst their bubble. I want them to pursue it. I just want them to do the right things and have the right foundation to be successful in cybersecurity. And so, yeah, I think that, it just depends. I came into IT, probably 30 years of age. I had a career prior to IT, and I transitioned to IT because I had a really good aptitude. I love technology. I love to take things apart and see how they work and put them back together again. And, I knew IT paid really well. So I got into IT. I just started taking a class. I took a pay cut to take a help desk job so I could start getting experience. And then I went to evening school, 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock p.m. and took a course that was sort of like the course that I taught, which was designed to teach you what you need to know to be able to pass the Microsoft Systems Security Engineer, MCSE, in Windows NT 4 back in the day. And so by the time I had finished that, I had passed the 7 exams necessary to be an MCSE on NT 4. And then I pretty quickly found a job as a Microsoft engineer, and I made more money than the job that I had left to go to work for help desk. So my first real IT job was making more money than the job that I had before, and that's not even considering cyber. So you really have to, kind of have a plan in your mind of how am I going to gain this knowledge? Am I in IT or am I not in IT? If I'm not in IT, I got to get into IT, right? It's really hard to just jump right into cyber from nothing. And get into IT, work in IT, start getting some experience along the way. If you have cyber as your target, set goals. Find out. Here's what I always do: find out what you want, and then work your way back to where you are today. I had CISO as a goal, so I would look at job descriptions and I would read things about CISOs and what do they need to have to be a CISO. And I've found lately that varies greatly because there's so many different kinds of CISOs. But what in general is our organizations looking for? What degree level, what experience level, what skills? And so I started mapping that back to where I was at that time, and I started working on those things as I was working in IT. And I gradually continued to get those things and take a step up. And then at some point, I saw that everyone required a bachelor's. So I went to get my bachelor's. I got my bachelor's. And then I started seeing CISO jobs where they required a bachelor's, but masters are preferred. So if you have a master's, you're going to be at the top of the list in terms of your competition. And so I went and got my master's degree in cybersecurity. And so, I also have found out through talking to a lot of people, and networking is critical. Networking with individuals and peers is critical. And I found from talking to all those that they had a very good business sense. They understood the business. They understood finance. They understood management. They had great communication skills and relationship building and trust skills. And I found that to be very critical to the success of a CISO. So I continue to work on that. Lots of ways that I did that. So I just kept, taking steps up the ladder and until I finally got the CISO job. The problem was once I got the CISO job, I didn't have anything else to shoot for. So I was kind of lost at that point. But, like I said, just map out from where you're at to where you want to go, and then just start taking those steps. And those steps might be, associate's degree. It might be, 5 years experience in IT. It might be a master's degree or a bachelor's degree. It might be a certification exam. Start out with the A+, Network Plus. Those are really good general foundational certifications that will teach you a lot as you study for them. And as you go through, as you get into cybersecurity, then start maybe shooting for the CISSP or the ISAC CISA or CISM. Those are really sort of that management level that James was talking about. Once you get those, you're really considered pretty solid cyber professional and really sort of management material to the point where you can, you kind of have that bigger broad, if you're going to manage people doing identity access management, you're going to have people doing the incident response, and you're going to have people doing, security operations. You're going to be managing a team of a lot of different disciplines. So, you really have to understand, at least enough to be able to help them, train them, manage them, right, to the expectations that you want to have. So there's not one path for everybody. It really depends on a lot of those things.
So I'd like to add to this, and Randall, I certainly appreciate your viewpoints for sure, but here's where I fundamentally disagree with what you said. Now, I agree actually that you do need a broad range of knowledge in IT, but my argument is, and this is for all the people who are looking to get into cybersecurity, I don't think the onus should be on just the student to be perfect before they even apply to cybersecurity jobs. Certainly, they're going to have to know something. They can't just sit in front of a computer and apply for a job with nothing under their belt. They need to put in the effort. I get that. But what I'm hearing from a lot of hiring managers is they're just too busy or too lazy, or they just don't want to. They don't want to train these folks. They want them to come in with exactly the right amount of skills. They don't want to level them up more than they need to. They just want them to be able to do the job. Yeah. And that is such an indictment on us as a society in general, where you're not worth anything until you can get this job. And that's what frustrated a lot of people with your post, Randall. Even though I agree with you on a broad level, you do need broad IT knowledge to do well in cybersecurity. I agree with that. But I disagree with the fact that the person themselves needs to train themselves up to be able to get to the job in the first place. I think the hiring managers in the companies would be way better off if they trained and they mentored and they provided learning opportunities for people who are trying to get in. They already did some of the work. Well, bridge that gap for them. I mean, that's certainly how I started. And this is me more than 10 years ago now, where I came in with just IT experience as a developer. I didn't even work on any servers or any of the physical stuff, none of the physical stuff. I just literally wrote code all day long. And for them to take a chance on me and say, hey, why don't you get into AppSec now? I'm like, that is awesome. Yes. From AppSec, I was given so many opportunities to learn all the other domains. And that's what I'm saying. My post, and I'm glad you brought up posts and you're like, hey, you got views on it. My post was in direct, in actually like a response to yours. And I got a lot of engagement on that one. That was really good. I ended up getting almost 1,000 comments that said, this is exactly what people are looking for. They want a chance. Right. And now you might just say like, it'd be so much better for the business to have you hit the ground running. And I get that. But what are we trying to do as a society to our people? Like, we're telling them they're worthless unless they are perfect candidates. Like, or are we saying, I see you as a human. I see you being proactive in your career set. And I know you're trying to level up. Let me give you that leg up. Let me help you from where you are right now. You don't have to be perfect. I'll take you as you are, and I will train you up. And that is what's missing between our generation, this generation now, versus the generation that I grew up in. And again, I'm 39 years old. So I would say maybe even 10, 15 years ago, it was vastly different. What do you think?
No, I totally agree with you. And I've never said that you have to be perfect to get into cyber. And I'll give you a great example of that. We had a position for a level 1 analyst, cyber analyst, and the requirement was 5 years of experience. And so we interviewed this young lady. She's Vietnamese. I'm not going to say her name, but she might be listening. But she came to us from SecureSet. SecureSet is a pretty well-known organization that trains folks in cyber. And she had a couple of years experience, but she was phenomenal. She was the best interview I ever had. I mean, she was just bubbling with aptitude and passion, and really wanted to get into it. And I threw her some pretty hard questions, and she got it. She got it more than some of the more advanced folks that I've interviewed. And, I was just blown away by her, and we couldn't hire her. We couldn't hire her because she didn't have 5 years experience. But, I asked for aptitude and attitude, And when I moved to Colorado, now I ask for altitude, but I can train you. If you have a great interest and a great aptitude, demonstrable aptitude, yeah, we want you. The problem is, at least in our situation, HR just had things set up in a way that made it impossible for us to hire her. And of course, we couldn't go against that because it would be inconsistent hiring practices, and that's not a good thing. So we worked with them ultimately to get that changed for our sort of positioning within our team and our hiring requirements. And then we ended up getting somebody else who's fantastic as well. But that young lady, she was just anybody. I put out the word about her because I wanted her to get a job, because she would, and she's a rock star. She's a rock star. So you're absolutely right that those folks can get in there and can get started, and they're going to be very successful. And so I think it's just that element of having that great aptitude and passion about it, and then just making sure that you have some stuff under your belt to, so that we can bring you in, and we'll absolutely train you. So yeah, I'm not saying.
Awesome. And I know it takes an element of courage from the hiring manager's perspective. I get it. As a risk-based person in general, I don't want to take on additional risk to my team if I don't have to. But if you see a spark in there, if their eyes light up when they talk about cyber, and they've already done the home labs, they've done the projects, they've done volunteering work, like these are all the things that I look for, like you said, attitude. And it's so hard to measure quantitatively, but I would say when you see it, it's there. Yeah. And that's what I look for, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. You can spot it. Their eyes light up when they talk about it. I had another hire that he had about 4 years of IT experience. It was just IT. It was scripting around Microsoft and doing things like that. And he wanted to work in security. And he came, and I had CISSPs, 5 or 6 of them. And frankly, a lot of them were arrogant, hey, I'm a CISP, so I should get this job. And this guy came to me, and he didn't have any security experience, but he had such a passion. You could just see it. You could feel it. It was like an electric buzz in the room, just because he was so passionate and wanted to get a job. And, he showed me some of the scripts. He brought evidence of some of the stuff he'd been doing. It's not cyber related, but definitely can apply to cyber. But he showed me a lot of the scripts that he wrote to automate stuff that was always being done manually. He showed me all the documentation that he had done around everything that he does. He documents for the next person that comes behind him. And those are 2 skills that are just, it's just hard to find people that want to do that. And I hired him, and he was one of the best hires I ever had. And, like I said, you have to be able to take a chance. You have to be able to spot talent. It doesn't have to be 5 years of cyber experience or even 5 years of IT experience. It just needs, you have to understand that you can't come in the front door of cybersecurity usually, without having at least some IT under your belt, or some skills, that they're relative. I have other folks that were, we had one that was an FBI agent, and although he had done cyber, some of those agents don't really get into the very technical cyber. They get more into the investigations and kind of the psychology around the hackers and attribution, but they really don't have hands-on IT. But this guy, and it's not one of my hires, but this guy that I know of, he was just fantastic around people skills, communication skills, interest in cyber, and really the ability to pick things up very quickly. And, he found a job in cybersecurity, and just phenomenal value in addition to our profession. So
there are some awesome comments coming in. Go ahead, James.
So you both kind of brought up some really good points, and I kind of want to summarize it and kind of bring it all into some of our viewers, if that's okay with you, Naomi and Randall. Is there's a need for some level of proficiency in IT, and it can be something as very basic or something as advanced as going and doing the CC. Like, I don't want to say advanced like Network Plus or Security Plus, but you got to have some level of doing IT. I'll give you an example, Randall. I was speaking to soldiers on their way out of the military, all combat kids, right? So these guys are, blow it up and shoot it up. Their idea of using a computer is Facebook, which we can get into that discussion. But what I did is I asked someone I know, and we printed out these network maps, but we changed it from a network and we made it look like, hey, we're trying to get from point A to point B. These are all the things that are in the way. Help us secure this route. And then we want you to write along this route the different stuff that you would do to ensure that, our unit wouldn't be tackled, that we wouldn't take on any enemy fire, that no one would be able to, to steal our stuff or isolate one of our vehicles in this process. And so gave them 20 minutes, critically thinking. They're all on these little whiteboard kind of printed out old school style. It's the military, we don't have touch screens. And so they're doing that, Randall, for about 15, 20 minutes. And they come back and they all come and present the stuff. And I go, you know what you guys just did? And they go, what? I was like, you built a security architecture. Mm-hmm. I go, because the map that you're drawing on is actually a network IT map, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of times we as IT professionals, people who are in cyber, who come from that IT background, which is necessary because you can't not have it. We're sometimes, like you said, with your CISPs. I've met so many CISPs that go, I'm entitled for this. You're entitled to nothing. Right. You're given an opportunity, but you're entitled to nothing. Right. The fact that you did a CISP gives you zero entitlements. It just lets us know you did it. But these combat guys all left from there thinking, wow, I can be more than a G4S security guard. I can be more than I can actually translate my skills into critical thinking within security and IT, because those skills can translate one-to-one. And I think the point that Naomi brings up that's really, really effective is the fact that if we just start to look at people beyond that level of qualification, and like you both said, that passion, that spark in the eye, the ability of someone to come in and say, I've got a server in my house that I bought off of eBay, right, that I'm messing around with, and I've separated my home network, and I got 6 different home networks, and I have my IoT devices on one, and that stuff you don't learn in a bachelor's degree or an associate's degree. No offense to Randall and Chris, I know you both teach, but you have students that walk into your classroom who don't do that, who are just like, all right, let me get the credits for this so I can get a piece of paper so that I can get a job. And some people just don't have that passion. I mean, passion is everything. If someone has the passion and the aptitude and they have the will, it is incumbent on us as leaders, if we call ourselves leaders, to take that risk and be willing to back it up and build a supporting team around that person to really help that person get up and rise. In the military, if we went into battle, you didn't look at, the slow guy and go, well, leave him behind. Right? Like everyone was around the slow guy saying, we got to make sure he keeps up pace with us. We got to make sure that, we can't leave a man behind. And if we just, that's about leadership, and our leadership skills are incumbent on us to build our team so that it's not one against the other. It's not one team versus another team. Competition is good, but that camaraderie is even more important, that we're all on this one team. And we see that now with FireEye. I just saw a post right before we went live of someone saying, this is why, FireEye should have known better. And I want to choke that person. I literally want to choke that person. Like, I am debating of doxing him right now. And in my brain of brains, I want to dox him. And my good nature, and because it's Hanukkah, I'm going to give him the miracle of a pass.
Calm down, Alex. Calm down, Alex.
Alex,
calm down.
All right, we're going to get to some comments.
Well, can I say one thing before you go? One of the things that I love that James brought up, and that Naomi brought up, and that Randall also touched on, is the key of transferable skills. That's one of the things, both as a teacher and a manager, that I love to show people, is how you could take processes and procedures from one area of life and transfer it to another area of life, and that you can apply those concepts over. And that's one of the easier ways for someone to transition into this industry, is by having those sorts of transitional conversations with them. I'll let you go to the comments, Renee.
Awesome. Tons of, I'm going to start at the bottom right here where Brent says team. And I think these perspectives are so very important, especially Randall and Chris being college professors, Randall, Alex, and Naomi. James, aka Alex, and Naomi being CISOs, just bringing the various perspectives, because to Naomi's point, all we hear from people all the time. They're struggling. They're doing what people told them to do, and they still can't hack it. So that combination of the leaders reaching down, helping, pull people up, and then the students kind of getting the education and the hands-on experience that they need for us to meet in the middle, so we don't have another 500,000, I think was the number quoted to me yesterday, open cybersecurity positions. Okay, so comments. The people are on fire in the comments. So I'm going to go all the way back here. Brent says, it is great hearing how people got into IT security. So many people have varied backgrounds. And it's so true. It's funny, I used to think that that I was unique and Chris was unique and all of us were unique, but this is how everyone gets in. Like nobody, typically, you think about 8 years ago, 10 years ago, like Naomi pointed out, Randall, when you were coming in, James, when you were coming in, like all of us 10 years ago, there was no like direct path. It was all pulling people from different places. So,
right, because no one knew you needed security, and then you were like asking for volunteers. Who wants to come and help us with security? And we were the idiots that raised our hand, and we're like, okay, we'll do this.
That's exactly how
the worst that can happen here.
Totally how it went. Okay, so Al,
you really want me to answer
that? There has to be a realistic career path explained to people just breaking into IT. Experienced professionals should guide new ones to avoid being misled by false expectations, but help them to see how to grow step by step. At least show how to navigate through reliable sources.
That's what a good mentor is for.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so good. Lincoln is talking about when Randall was giving his advice initially, very solid. Brent comments, I agree to Al, but this is often up to the manager or seasoned professional. Fear of competition prevents some of this from taking root. Comments on that? Fear of competition?
Well, managers always, I hate managers that fears hiring someone that's better than them. I always look to hire someone better than me because I know I'm not going to be in that role forever. And if they are worth it being my manager, I would love to work for them. So I always try to hire up. I look for the potential, the diamond in the rough, and try to squeeze whatever I can out of them because I want them to be their best selves. But that's not always the case. There's people that take a job just for the paycheck, and those types of people, they don't want someone to surpass them. So they squeeze the life out of those people, or they don't give them the chance.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Leadership. Difference between managers and leaders. Leaders build teams. Managers bring peons.
I think the concept of skip level is really important. So in my team, we have a director, and then we have, analysts under him. And, I encourage them to come meet with me one-on-one on a monthly basis. And when they do, I give them homework. Sometimes they don't want to come see me because I always give them homework. I say, come back and explain to me how the OSI model works. And then explain to me how security is interwoven within the OSI model. Ports, protocols, threats at each layer, security controls at each layer. And, and they come back and they have done a bunch of research, and, they're just that much better with a really good conceptual understanding of how security intertwines within the OSI model. So I think that's got to be part of it. You got to share your knowledge and experience with that team and keep on building them up. And then if they become a rock star and they surpass you, that's fantastic. That's exactly what you should hope for.
That, I mean, it's what you should hope for, but we've learned that everyone isn't like you, Randall, or you, Chris, or, we had some, like I said, the CIO that was on yesterday saying the same thing, and saying, like, I don't want to be that single point of failure. Like, I need somebody that knows, that can back me up. I need somebody that understands this. Brett said we should always look for people smarter than we are. Learning runs both ways. That is so true. So
That's
true.
reverse mentorship.
Well, I love mentees. Like, tell me what y'all doing. What do you got?
I mean, but you have to look at it in the way of what happens in large organizations where your teams exceed, 50, 60, 70 people, and you're in that CISO role. You're kind of relying on your VPs, and you can have a bad VP, or a bad director, and you want to replace that person, but you realize the difficulty today, and I'll say it again, is not breaking into cyber, although, that's one of the difficulties. It's finding that mid-level person that you can trust to do the work for you. That's the toughest role to find. I think it's easier to find tier 1 and tier 2 analysts and red teamers and blue teamers and purple teamers. I think there's a bevy of them, and it's what we talk about every other week on the podcast here, which is, let's align HR with what we need. Let's get rid of those, requirements that say 5 years or 2 years or a CISP, and get them on board. It's that mid-level roles where we see a lot of people here who talk about the difficulty of getting in, where they hit the wall. It's not at the CISO level. Sometimes we don't even know it's happening. I mean, and that's the other part, is we can sit here and talk about it all we want, but sometimes we don't know it's happening, and we need to be in, what I think there's like 9 disciplines to cyber, if you really want to break it down. So we have to manage 9 disciplines of cyber, including the politics of the corporation, including the cross-organizational stuff that we need to do, building relationships. And now we need to look at every single CV that comes through to see whether or not we're giving the person the right shot. And I think that's the difficulty right now, is that mid-level job. It's those mid-level people who are sometimes creating a lot of these challenges, and it's incumbent on us to kind of bring those people in now and straighten that line.
Well, I think you're absolutely right in terms of leaders wanting the mid-level people. That's usually when they call me. Like, hey, we're struggling. We need somebody that has 7, 10, 15, whatever, how many ever years, a senior architect. It could be individual contributor or a team lead or whatever, right? Then you have this bevy of people at the bottom trying to break in to get to mid-level. So the real question mark is that gap in between. You have all these people at the bottom. There's a bottleneck. So you have all these people at the bottom, and then you have this big gap in the middle, right? And then you have, pretty much, it's almost like an 8 or one of those reverse kind of vases or whatever, where you have this funnel at the bottom, a lot of people, skinny bottleneck, and then at the top, decent amount of CISOs. So it's, how do we get more people into that middle tier? How do we get them from, I actually want to do this, I am passionate, I'm this, I'm that, I'm going to school, I'm doing what people are saying, and I can't even break in to get up the 5 years. I can't make it to the 5-year level to now, now I don't have to, you don't need someone shadowing someone that has 5 to 7 to 15 years experience. I think that's where the real, quote unquote, rubber meets the road. That's the gap.
Something I would say here is about the COVID pandemic is sort of been a blessing in one way that, usually we were, geographically captured, right? We, unless we wanted to relocate, we were subject to the jobs that were within the driving distance of where we lived or chose to live. And now there are so many jobs, and probably many of those jobs will permanently be remote because from the manager side, you really have a lot more selection. It's not just people who live in your city. Now I can really hire anywhere in the world for and look for talent. And from the applicants side, you can now apply to a lot more jobs that aren't just within your geography. You can apply. If you live in New York, you can apply for a job in California, and and likely be just as effective as somebody sitting in a chair in a cube. So I think that the search, the ability to get those people into that funnel and get them the experience is really good. Especially now that you can, be more geographically dispersed in your search.
Yeah, I think Naomi had to hop. Go ahead, James.
Spot on, Randall. I think our now the organization and HR can no longer fight you about location and geography, right? Mm-hmm. We're actually winning the battle now. Thank you so much, China, and thank you, COVID. It took over 1 million dead people globally to get organizations to understand that you no longer need to be centralized in one place, that you can be decentralized. And I think one of the things we're going to see out of COVID, by the way, is the new global workforce. Meaning the new global workforce is going to be, I'm no longer limited to hiring in my state or in my country, but I can now go outside, which is going to create a lot more work opportunities for everyone. Simply because now if I'm a good, I saw one of the comments here was a person who was a digital marketer. So if I'm a really good digital marketer and I know multilingual and I know multiple languages, I can now go and work for a Russian company or sorry, that's a bad example. A German company, all right, or a company out in Norway or Sweden or anywhere else in the world, and be able to earn what I earn here. And so there's that aspect of it that's going to really change over a period of time, because more and more organizations and more companies are going to do that.
Yep. So I'm going to go through these comments. Naomi had to run. She had a hard stop at noon Eastern. So I am going to go through these comments, and then we will, oh no, Chris has to run too. Okay, so let me run through these real quick because there's so many, but this was such a good topic, and I'm hoping that we can continue this conversation. John says, he's a digital marketer breaking into the cybersecurity world, taking a Security Plus course to help him with creating security-related content, even though it's not his background. Any advice on how to get better from a 10,000-foot view of the field?
Yeah, look at what everyone else is doing and do the complete opposite.
Oh my goodness! All right, I'm going down to the rest of the comments here. Go ahead, James.
No, I'm good.
You're saying something? Okay.
I was going to point out
Go ahead.
One of Brent's comments here. And he says the CISSP was intended as a management cert, not as a technical qualifier. Now it's seen as a minimum qualification for so many lower level. And I think that that's very true. And I think that that's due to many HR departments just going out and doing a search and saying, oh, I see CISP everywhere, so let's make these people have to have a CISP. And then the hiring manager doesn't push back against that, then that you're going to fail. It is intended to be a management qualifier in cyber, right?
Yeah,
gives you that very broad knowledge across it, but not really any deep technical or deep, knowledge. Yeah.
And it's bizarre because this comes up every week, and I shake my head every time about the fact that HR, steps in, and I get it on certain things. I understand when folks when HR has to make when it's like a company wide, right? So, okay, everybody has to have a degree, that kind of thing. But it's like mind boggling to me that they would be going in and changing your certifications and adding years of experience. That's crazy to me. It is 12:03 though, and everyone has to drop, and there's some awesome comments in here. So I'm feeling like, can we do this again next week? Can we continue this conversation? What do you think?
I think we can always carry this conversation forward.
There's so many good things in here. And we all have to run. But folks, Randall, I just want to thank you so much for being here with us. You bring such a great perspective. We love hearing from a college professor, somebody that's gone through the ranks, somebody that has a college degree, all this stuff, and now is on the other side of it, looking back and looking around and seeing this. And as usual, James, your expertise and insight and all the things that you bring here it's always really good. And everyone else with all the comments has been really, really awesome. So, we're back again next Thursday. So I don't know if we could twist Randall's arm to come back to finish. But if not, Randall, if you're unavailable, we get it. But we will be here next Thursday at 11 Eastern. So
brilliant.
Yeah, I will definitely try.
All right. Sounds good.
Thanks for having me.
All right, folks. Take care. See everyone next week on another CISO Thursdays. Bye.
Brilliant. Bye.
Bye.